Hello y'all, I am back once again for another video, and this video is a video request from a sister. Thank you, sister, for the video request. I appreciate you so much. And for brothers, if y'all have a video request, you can always leave that in the comments, and if possible, I will honor your video request. However, this video is going to be about living in spiritual warfare. Let me say this one more time, y'all. Living in spiritual warfare, and what that means and what we are going to do about it together. Notice I said together, y'all, okay? And this video is meant to be. It just is. Because the spirit of it was already on that path. So once again, sister, thank you so much for the video request about living in spiritual warfare. So this video didn't just begin just today or right now. There are things that led up to this. And when I got the request, it's just time to do it. So see, when you're living in a spiritual warfare, there's a time for things. And that's when the spirit world will allow you to have information. You're studying. Okay, you get this information 5 years ago. You get this information 2 years ago. And then it all comes together. So I won't be moving on my bike. I am on the bike with I guess you would call this somewhat of a office space, y'all. I don't know what you want to call it, but I have like a little bench sitting next to my bike. I can't move on the bike because I don't want to drop these other devices and things like that. And at some point, I'm going to actually set up a real studio, y'all. It's going to be Little House on the Prairie like, but it will be a legitimate studio that I can actually go in that area, whatever my studio or office area will be, and I can be on video, possibly, or not be on video. But this is a comfort zone. I'm used to being on my bike and things like that. And even just sitting on the bike where the tablet sits and in the area of the room that this is in, it's just totally just meant to be. So, as I grow, so I just uploaded a couple of videos about logic and what logic is not. So, for that particular video, I had to actually take some notes. So, these videos are actually kind of turning into like classes, y'all, because when you start bringing books and notepads and things like that to your videos more often, I see that as a sign of growth. Okay. So I have, because I'm purchasing business supplies. I mean, I purchase like folders, and I have this notepad or whatever, this actual book to take notes in. And so I will begin here. So fair use, y'all, because when I am using materials from other writers or YouTubers, especially writers, where I don't have copyright privileges to these things, I have to say fair use so that I am not in trouble on this video. I don't want to get a copyright strike and things like that. After you get so many copyright strikes within 90 days, your channel can be terminated. And I would not want to do anything to have that happen. It's just not fair to you also, because I'm here to serve you. So I have a book. It's called The Art of War Visualized. It's visualized. It's more pictures than it is writing. It's actually very visual. So it's called The Art of War Visualized. And it's by Jessica, and I'll pronounce this two ways, Haggy or Hagee. I'm not sure the correct way, but it's Hagy. So it's either Hagee or Haggy. I'm not sure the correct pronunciation, but I would hope one of those is the correct pronunciation. So, or Haji. It may be Jessica Haji. And I can look up at some point. There's this app I used to go in where you could have the correct pronunciation for names and words and things like that. But it's called The Art of War. And I love this book. This book sits on my bookshelf. And because it's a visual book, you can go through the book. And what I did when I first got this book, I turned the pages. Okay. And keep in mind, I knew this book would have more of a purpose one day, but I never knew why. And lo and behold, here I am on this YouTube channel, and I am going to be discussing this book. Now, I won't tell you every part of the book because I think it's only fair to this writer. When you're using fair use and things like that, I should not be reading her entire book word for word because I don't think that's what fair use is. Fair use is using some of what I need from this book just for this video, for the purposes of this video. So, one of the things I will never forget when I got this book and I just flicked through it because it has all these pictures and things. Okay, one picture said, identify sources of joy and destroy them. So the enemy identifies your sources of joy and then destroys it or them. And the reason this is done is so they can kill your soul. So this is actually how to kill a soul. This is what it says. How to kill a soul. This is how you identify the sources of joy and then you destroy them. However, because you're empathic, we're not going to be destroying a soul because that's not what we do. However, this is what is being done to you by your enemy. And it happens in a lot of custody cases, boys and girls that are molested by adults, and people that are set on fire. Okay, you've had individuals where gasoline or some sort of burning agent has been thrown on them and they're set on fire. So the purpose of that is to kill their soul because they've identified maybe that their beauty is a source of joy. They want to destroy it, and so it kills the soul. So this was such an interesting part of this book. I mean, I knew that this book was a keeper, and because of that one page, I make sure that this book stays on my bookshelf. And also it has some of my favorite colors, red, black, and gold. So it fits in with the dynamics of my living room. So, and that's what narcissists and psychopaths and things are doing. So, okay, that's that piece. So let's go into the other piece. And then this will get more interesting as we go on. So the other video that I just uploaded, I talked about logic. The logical thinking definition is analyzing a situation or problem using reason and coming up with potential solution. Logical thinkers gather all the information they can, assess the facts, and then methodically decide the best way to move forward. So in this book, The Art of War, there's a part in here where it talks about making decisions. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, right here. So it has some arrows pointing up and to the side. And it says reactions. And it has you're in trouble. So if you're reacting, you're in trouble. But if you're making decisions, you're in control. So that is the concept of fighting spiritual wars. Now, the spiritual world is the unseen world. And that is where we fail in wars, because most of that spiritual world does come to be seen. So, say you got a friend or family member that's pretty demonic, and the spirit is on them to attack you through conversations, through belittling you, through devaluing your worth, down to just being pure mean. That demonic energy is on that person, that spirit. That's the spirit that's on that other person. However, you should be able to see that spirit at some point, because it will come out of their mouth by things that they say. And I'm not talking about just in general people having opinions and things like that. Everybody's not going to agree with you. So once you get to the point where you're in control and you're making decisions and not reacting, and y'all, I've gotten very good with that, because I just was in a war. I've talked about this in other videos where I've talked about I had a relative passed away, the nightmare that I went through, even just going to the funeral service. I had runaways last year with my sons. I was being even emotionally attacked by one of my relatives and things like that. And I will never call names out, even if it's my son or my daughter or my cousin. I would just say a relative, usually, especially if it's something that would affect our relationship. Because as of right now, I am in good standing with all of my sons, if that makes sense. So I have to do my videos. What if one of my sons hear the video, and one of my sons' name is Ricky? I mean, how would my son feel if I'm on here like Ricky? Ricky's a piece of crap, y'all. Ricky ain't about shit. So that's not what I do with my family. So a lot of times I will say my relatives, because that's what they are. Okay. So I don't need to be like so specific. All your relatives are your relatives. Your cousin's your relative. Some of y'all got adopted relatives and things like that. So this is the area I'm working on. So when you begin not reacting and making decisions and you're in control, you will naturally create more enemies. Some of the closest people to you will become silent enemies. And this is why. Now they know that your true abilities and the true peace you should have in your life will be even more obvious. Because you got to remember this. As an empathic man or woman, the spirit world is in support of you. You are not in any way considered an enemy to the Lord. And this is why a lot of times narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths hate us internally. They hate us in such a way because it's so much that they just can't control. And they want the control so that you lose the war. And the ultimate spiritual warfare and living in it is the attack upon your mind. Every spiritual warfare that I was in, and it starts back to childhood, y'all. It starts back to when your mamas and daddies can't do right by you. Grandmothers and grandfathers are corrupt. Addictions in the family, all of these elements, child molestation, poverty. So the warfare began there. But like I said, because you're empathic, the spirit world supports you and will have your back. Even if it means that your abuser kills you and you enter a heaven, or whatever you would consider heaven in the universal world, where it's not a fire or it's not a bad place. It's a place of a eternity where a soul could go and be at peace. And you actually, in the soul world, live better than you are on earth. So see that narcissist or that psychopath doesn't win that war because they have no power to kill your soul. They can't do that. They can just only kill your physical body. So I'm trying to give the most extreme situation so you will understand how much the spirit world supports you. And because of that, you're already in a winning position to win a war, or what about this? Never enter into it. And that's what I'm working on. I'm working on not even entering the war. I had horrific things said to me when my relative passed away in Texas. That could have really brought me down. But what am I doing? I'm here on this video giving information and telling you what I went through, and I'm very sound minded right now. And one reason I'm sound minded is because of logic. See, when people are not in contact with you, so like for me, before I went to this funeral, I was not in contact with my relative that passed away. I wasn't in contact with her relatives. And this particular man that was saying all this graphic stuff and horrific stuff, it just shows where he's at in life. It shows where he lacks work. But see, I came into this situation before my relative died. I came into it, for one, with insight. That's why this is advanced insight. With insight, you should have foresight. You could kind of see into the future. It was kind of obvious this situation was not going uphill in an earthly sense. So I was in prayer. I had a little bit of money saved, enough to get me there, with a few donations that people were nice enough to donate. Very kind-hearted people donated. I never asked for anything. I did post a Facebook thing, giving my Cash App if anybody wanted to donate. But the only reason I did that is because I noticed other people had donated. And what I didn't want to be doing is being stuck in another state that's not my home. And nobody donated that way. However, that's fine. I got plenty of what I needed, and I also had my own monies. So I was in a position, as far as my mind goes, I think my mind was in a healthy place considering what happened. So I went into it with a healthy mind. And that's why we lose wars, or we fail, or sometimes we have permanent nervous breakdowns and things like that, because it's the status that you're in before someone goes to war with you. Now, empaths, we don't start wars unless we choose to go to war. Now, I can choose to go to war, but we don't start wars in the same way that psychopaths and narcissists do, because we typically just don't do stuff to people without a cause. So I promise you this. Okay, for example, if someone had something negative to say and was like, well, she's this, and that, or if they talking about you and you a man, he's this and that. If I'm questioned about it, I could point out why I had that reaction. Well, this is what they done. They did. They did this, and that. And I could be able to usually explain what happened. And so we got reactions. So, okay, another thing it says, okay, to terrify someone, you drive them away. When you antagonize someone, you draw them in. And then it says tempt. Okay, so it says, by holding out advantages to him, he can cause the enemy to approach of his own accord. Or by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. Hmm. By holding out. So if you're holding out advantages, you could cause the enemy to approach. No, if someone's holding out advantages, yeah, but see, that's like I just pointed out, we go to war. If someone's holding out an advantage, if I approach, it's because I'm choosing to go into the war because I'm fighting for something. And by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. But draw near to what? You see what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, if the enemy inflicts damage and say you're physically disabled now, you can't draw near because you can't walk. And you'll be surprised how many narcissists are writing materials, or they're kind of in a subtle way explaining to you how to treat narcissists in a way. I mean, the thing is, I think avoiding war is the best thing. But see, when you have to take care of your business, like legal pursuits and things like that, those are a form of wars, but it's your responsibility to take care of those things. And it's a time and a place for it. Let's see. Hmm. Talked about truth and sunlight destroys 99% of harmful pests. Yeah, I would say that. And of course, the pests would be other human beings. I mean, they're kind of using that as a term for pests, but the truth. And so, just a lot of people believe in silence. Anybody that really knows me, um, when I tell the truth and not be silent, see, I don't allow people to just talk certain things to me, especially if they're going to be in my life. So, violent threats and things like that, for me, it's best to remain silent because of temperament control. And that way nobody gets hurt. Okay? Cuz I'm really not like I guess in the anger management world, I would be considered more of the exploder. So I would be considered, and I learned this from an anger management class many years ago. They have categories for your anger. So I'm the type where, okay, keep calling me names, you keep fighting me, then it explodes and it appears as if you have lost the war or the other person have lost the war because they laying out on my floor here. So for me, what I have to do is ignore it, but not repeatedly ignore it. Like that man in Texas that was calling me all those names, threatening me, he had his woman threatening me. I wouldn't engage those people. So since I am an exploder, I control my temper, but I'm not going to bet on me continuing to control it if I talk to that crazy alcoholic nutcase man every day. I'm not going to already know me. See, and that's part of war too, is tactic. So, in order for you to get the correct tactic, you have to know yourself. And this is the thing with that particular man down in Texas, no matter what he think he taking or doing, he still lost the war because he displayed that behavior upon a grieving woman. So there's no win in that. That makes him a loser. If he was at war with me, he's a loser because people in war, they prove things. Hitler in Germany, he proved that he was so wicked that he could kill children and pile them up outside. So, regardless of how many children or how many Germans or Jews that Hitler killed, his war on the Jewish community, no matter how many of them he murdered, he still lost the war. See, bodies stacked up or a lot of money stacked up doesn't mean you won it, because you lost it in the spiritual world, or the psychopath has lost it because now everybody know the type of soul they got. They're soulless. So I won that war. I don't care who he don't let me talk to or what's going on. The war is won on my end because, for one, I don't have to wake up and be that type of man. That's not my nature. I'm able to understand through intelligence that people die. That is a reality. People are going to die. And going crazy, cussing people out, having his old bipolar acting, schizophrenic old woman threaten me and all of that, it's no win there, not on their part. If anything, I won that war. So spiritual warfare also involves, when you're living in it, it involves, how can I say this? Having a platform and a fact-based history of what you do. And that's a lot of times what we don't do because we don't know we're in a war. And your wars are with people at the end of the day. So remember, the ultimate war is on the mind. So that war that I was in with my relative just passing, that was a war of the mind. Okay. So understanding what you're going to invest in and what you're not going to invest in. So I just had a recent situation. My relative called me over the weekend. I was in a particular location paying a bill that I needed to pay, doing what I'm supposed to do. And remember, when you're doing what you're supposed to do, wars and attacks just will come from outside sources. I mean, it could be that you're getting robbed by someone just tried to take your purse or your wallet. It's many things. So I answered my phone, and the relative, you know, I'm like, hey, how you doing? So as we're talking for a minute or so, this particular relative asked me, why do I call her real sis? And what I had started doing was, like, when I would write Facebook things or DM her or send her a message, I would call her real sis because, as you know me, oftentimes I will call you sister or brother. However, because I do that sometimes and my biological sister sees it, I just didn't want her to feel left out or feel like she's not as much of a sister. I just didn't want any jealousy to spark or anything like that. So I called myself coming up with a cute nickname I call her sometimes. And so I began to call her real sis or type it sometimes. It was sometimes I'll say it over the phone or type it. And I've been calling her this for some months now. I think it even started I think it started even before we went to our relative's funeral. So she asked me, why do I call her that? And I explained what I just explained to you. I said, well, you're my real sis. I just want you to know that you're special or whatever, however way I worded it. And sometimes I call other people that or whatever on Facebook, and you are my real sis. So I wanted to be specific and, not be writing things to other people and being offensive. Because when you're on Facebook or any social media, even on my YouTube, my biological sister, she might even hear me or see me calling y'all sister and brother or sister and brother. And so my attempt was not to hurt her feelings or anything like that and to just make her feel special. However, when I explained to her why, coming from a nice place, there was no response. None. My biological sister, and I also pointed out, hey, we have the same mom. We don't have the same dad, but we do have the same mother. So I pointed out, that was one of the first things I said when she asked me, well, we are real sisters. We have the same mother. And there was no response to it. There was nothing. She didn't say thank you. Oh, that's cute. She also didn't say she didn't like it. And in schizophrenia, they have something called a flat affect. That's where there's no emotion in the face. And I'm not saying my sister's schizophrenic, but I'm going to use that same term for flat affect in the voice when there's no emotion behind it and you're explaining a good deed. So those type of things can take you into a living a spiritual warfare. So I have to decide, well, what do I do? And I didn't respond when I told her why and she didn't respond. What I did was I got off the phone and I said, I'll call you back because I'm in this particular place in this office taking care of this business. And I did. I called her back and we continued our conversation, and it was not about the real sis thing. But with living in a spiritual warfare, you need a tactic. And that's the key to any war or spiritual warfare is a tactic. So you are not put on earth to be unappreciated by people. So since my biological sister didn't say if she liked it or not, because I have the empathy, I also don't want to offend her. So I will discontinue using that because she didn't say if she liked it. She didn't say if she didn't like it. She said nothing. And that's the warfare when you're an empath. Is being treated bad when you're nice to people. However, you never know what somebody else is going through. She might just be going through a serious stage where she wants people to call her by her name all the time. You just don't know. But what I did in that, what could have been a warfare, because I could have went off, I could have took it the wrong way. Pay attention to people's reactions to you. And that's how you will stay out of wars, fight wars, and know the correct tactic. So what I did was I had self-control and I continued to take care of my business. Because when I'm taking care of my business and I'm in somewhere paying a bill, I don't even have to answer your call. But I did. So what I did was I rerouted myself to a more positive activity. Because to be honest, someone asking me, why am I calling them real sis and they're my biological sister, that is not a positive activity in the real sense of the word. Especially if they're not engaging it, you're not thankful for the kindness or anything like that. So, living in a spiritual warfare, you got to learn the power of getting out the game, not doing it no more. What do they call it when people stop going to war? What is that? When you're no longer going to war, there's a term for that. Retreat, is that the word? Let me see. What does retreat mean? Because I want to make sure I'm using the right word. Retreat meaning. Yeah, retreat. Okay. Withdraw from enemy forces as a result of their superior power or after a defeat. But see, in this case, you don't have to have lost it to retreat. You can retreat. That's the key. Living in a spiritual warfare, retreat before the war start. This is giving you an example of retreating because you've been defeated or they have more power over you. But if you learn to retreat or withdraw before they gain the power, there was never a war in the first place. So that's probably the most powerful part of this video is understanding that you need to retreat ahead of time. And so that's what I did. I retreated, I withdraw, I got out of there. And I will not call her real sis anymore. And this is why. I'm going to explain to you something and what I'm going through. I got some people that I'm going to be showing a lot of love to because when they see my relatives, messages come. Tell your mama I love her. This is the type of messages that come through this particular, these relatives for me. And so I don't need to be involved in this because this is the thing. And people don't understand the level of kind natured people you're around. This is the type of people that I'm around. Affectionate people. My biological sister, she has a good soul, but she might lack in the affection area. And that's because of things that went on in our upbringing. And I think she may suffer from or in that area more than I do because for one, I moved out of town. I've been around different kind of people. So is my sister. My sister has access to beautiful people in her life. However, I won't call her real sis anymore. I will refer to her by her name or maybe just take the word real off. She never questioned me when I just called her sister. I guess it was more of a question when I added the word real on it. But like I said earlier, I had good intentions. I explained why. And you being empathetic, you would probably think, oh, well, that was sweet of you. But that's not the response I'm going to get from the biological sister. So I just retreat in those kind of situations because I got people around me that if I called them that, if I called the sister that asked me to do this video request, if I typed real sis to her one day, she's not going to ask me why. She's just going to thank me for it. You see the difference? So, and she's not my biological sister that I know of. Okay. I mean, as far as I know, me and the sister that requested this video is not my biological sister, but yes, I consider her a sister in the good energy spiritual world. And I could feel the good energy from her just seeing her message. I mean, I don't know her personally, but if she's real behind the scenes, she just seemed like she got a good, consistent character about herself. I definitely know she's been subjected to some narcissists in her life. Sometimes the narcissist is right in the house with you. You know, you never know what people are struggling and going through. However, I can still do something with that word. So see, that's the tactic that needs to be used in any war or situation. War is nothing but a situation. That's it. It's a situation where there's a fighting, a standoff, there's a stalemate. It's no different than checkers or chess. There's strategic planning and tactics that need to be done. And so the tactic is this because the warfare is to get your mind bottled up. Ask you this question while you're grieving over your relative. And that's another thing. Spiritual warfare, the more you learn about how people don't care in the real sense of the word, then you will become a better person. So, how I handle warfare is through having a tactic. And my tactics are not extreme. My tactics are very basic. Because, see, what I do more of sometimes, don't always be talkative in every situation. You don't always have to be so talkative. I was not talkative. I answered the question. When my biological sister did not respond and say she liked it or didn't like it, I didn't feed that energy. I thought about the question, thought about it a little more, and made a decision, just like the Art of War visualized. What did it say? It said you're not going to react, you're going to make a decision. I won't call that her that nickname anymore because I don't want to offend her. And I can take that nickname and call somebody else that's not even my blood sister, and they may not even ask me why I'm saying that. I know some sisters that I've known a very long time. And if I say, hey, real sis, they're not going to say nothing. They probably would assume I mean that they are a real good person or something. Or they may not even ask me why. I mean, I don't normally have people when I give them a nickname or something sweet or something like that. That's not my norm that they ask why I'm doing it. It's kind of like common sense. But when you're dealing with situations where there's been some kind of grudge or stuff like that, that could be my biological sister, but in a lot of her ways, she may not like me like that. She may feel some level of love or bonding, but it might not be to the degree I do. So you got to develop a tactic. And if you have a tactic, which is a way that you do things, a system that you have in place. And this is the thing, y'all. When you're living in spiritual warfare, this will be your hardest, most difficult problem that I see in people. You gotta be able to do what you say you're gonna do. If that made me uncomfortable and I don't want to make my sister uncomfortable, I have to not call her that anymore. Now, she may notice I don't call her that no more, and she may call me that on her own. She may want to call me that and not want me to call her that. Kind of like taking over the word. You just never know what people may want to do in the future. However, I'm gonna do a part 2 to this, y'all. The spiritual living in spiritual warfare, because this video is gonna cut off on its own in a couple of minutes, and I'm just gonna have to do a part 2. It just won't work. So I'm just warning you to go to part 2 because I have much, much more. I need to talk about the 48 laws of power. And when I talk about these things, y'all, it's not going to be suggesting that you follow those, y'all. Remember, this is advanced insight, not follow insight. So just because Robert Greene has such a good reputation with the 48 laws of power, I have my own perspective that I will share that really made me think, because originally when I first heard of the 48 laws of power, for one, I wasn't doing this channel, and for second, I didn't fully know what a psychopath, narcissist, and sociopath was. So when you look at something and you're way more educated now than you were, it looks totally different to you. So there has to be a part 2, because I have to go more into living in spiritual warfare, because this video just wasn't enough time to cover more of what I have to say, because I actually got books and notes here, y'all. So I've gotten through some of it. So this is part 1 of living in a spiritual warfare. So go ahead and move on to part 2. And that way we can get educated together and figure out how we're going to master this. Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to master it, y'all. And you're not going to be living in none of this mess. Outside of another country, kicking your door down at your house out of the blue and coming in, invading you, you're not going to be living in no spiritual warfare when I get done with these videos. So this is going to be part 1. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please move on to part 2. Move on to part 2 ASAP so you do not miss the lesson, y'all. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. Please leave a comment. Thank you. Bye.